It is good to be back in studio. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope everyone had fun with their family, with their friends, relaxing or busy, whatever it was that you did. We went to visit family in Ohio, although we ended up getting smacked with the flu, so even better to be back in studio. We have so much to talk about today. I was chomping at the bit to get back here talking with you because, my goodness, who would have thought so many things happened over Christmas break? Before we get to all of that, though, if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my show, I would greatly appreciate that. Maybe you heard the news, maybe you have not. So in the event that you have not, let me tell you right now, we are moving to 5 days a week. That's right. You can now download the Liz Wheeler Show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We're very excited about this, and thank you. I mean, this is really due to you. Not only have you requested this repeatedly until we made it happen, but it's also the success of the show is also a partnership. You and I, we have an ongoing conversation, and I really appreciate this powerhouse that we're building, and I really appreciate you guys all being teammates on this journey. So that 5 episodes a week will be starting next week. So whether you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whether you watch the video version on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Locals, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss even a single episode as we ramp things up. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, a couple things. We are going to talk about the Buffalo Bills, Damar Hamlin's collapse on the field during Monday Night Football. Horrendous, heartbreaking. There's no words to describe the horror of watching someone keel over the way that he did. And we're going to talk about the legitimate questions about the correlation between what happened to him and the you-know-what. We're told we're not supposed to talk about this, but that's a stupid rule. It's a stupid rule that we don't have to follow. And we actually should talk about this for the good of Damar Hamlin and people like him. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the House leadership vote. Republicans are trying kind of to elect a Speaker of the House. McCarthy has been stymied by what CNN has called, I actually think this was a great nickname that CNN coined. CNN called the 20 Republicans who refused to vote for McCarthy, CNN calls them the rebels. The rebels. And I really feel like this is an opportunity for those 20 Republicans to co-opt that insult and make it their war cry like we did. When the British called us Yankee Doodle during the Revolutionary War, we actually just co-opted that tune and changed it from an insult to a battle cry here. We're going to talk about this, though, because some conservatives and Republicans are very pro-McCarthy, which is baffling. And some conservatives and Republicans think that there's an urgency to elect a speaker and that we shouldn't be having this gridlock. And I dissent. I object. I do not understand the huffing and puffing. I find it hilarious and delightful to watch this unfold. And I'll tell you what should happen and what ought to happen. We're going to talk about that today. We're also going to talk about former President Trump blamed the midterm loss. Now, technically, as you know, Republicans won that election because technically we won more seats than the Democrats did, but it wasn't the red wave that we were hoping for, that we expected. And so in that case, Trump blamed this lack of a red wave victory in the midterms on pro-lifers of all people. He tried to assign blame for the missing red wave to the Supreme Court for overturning Roe v. Wade. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what is happening with Trump because I have a couple of thoughts that I want to share with you on that. So let's get to it. I like FourPatriots, and I think you will too, because a food shortage could be coming even in the United States. That's what experts were writing as recently as July. Drought, inflation, even new political policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important than ever. Create your own stockpile of the best-selling FourPatriots survival food kits. It's not ordinary food. We're talking good for 25 years, super survival food. Hand-packed right in a family-owned facility in the USA, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, sturdy, water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, dinners. You can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. You just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to FourPatriots.com and use code Liz to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store. You'll get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called FourPatriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Just go to FourPatriots.com and use code Liz to get 10% off. That's FourPatriots.com. Use code Liz and start building your own stockpile today. Okay, the Damar Hamlin collapse is actually one of the most difficult things that I've seen. When it happened, it was during Monday Night Football. Probably a huge percentage of the country was watching this live. I was upstairs in my parents' house, actually. We were there for Christmas. I was upstairs putting my daughter to bed when my phone starts blowing up. I start getting all these text messages. Did you see this? What do you think of this? From political friends, but also just my family. My sister texted me from downstairs. Are you watching what's going on right now? And so I bring up this video and I watch the replay of Damar Hamlin making a tackle, which football is always a violent sport, but comparatively, this hit was on average, an average hit. It wasn't one of the ones where you're like, holy cow. It wasn't one of those extra violent ones. And I watched it and I just thought, wow, there are several things about this video that strike me as being different from other football injuries. So first of all, in case you didn't see it, this is what happened.
Yeah, it's not what any of us want to see, and everybody's around him, and just hope that he's going to be okay.
So we'll take another break here in Cincinnati.
And I think my reaction was the same as the reaction of most people. Is before I even started looking for speculation on what happened, you just, like I said, I was upstairs putting my daughter to bed and I just sit there and pray in Our Father. I just sit there and pray for the safety of this young man. He's 24 years old. He's so young. He's in the prime of his life. He's obviously living his dream playing in the NFL, and I just pray for his mother who had to sit there and watch it. They rushed him to the hospital. He and his family rode in the ambulance, and you just pray to God to protect this man, to give the medical professionals the guidance that they need, to give him the care that he needs to recover from this. Because the strange things about this video, and by the way, I know that there are some, this is a little tangential, but I'm going to get criticism for even playing that video, and I want to explain two things. I want to explain why I'm playing it, and I'm going to want to explain why I disagree with the people who think that we shouldn't play this video. There's a fashionable trend happening amongst particularly alternative media outlets, and what I mean by that is new media, so like podcasts and non-corporate cable news outlets, where they don't name the name of killers, whether it's a serial killer, whether it's a mass killer, whether it's a terrorist, whether it's a school shooter. They've decided not to publish the name of that individual because they say they don't want to spark copycats. They don't want to give that individual the notoriety that they might have sought. And I understand the intention of that, and I think that that's a mistake. I don't think that that's a good way to handle it, because what we want to do as broadcasters, what I strive to do when I sit here with you every day, is unpack what's going on in the world and properly order our response to what's happening in the world so that we can effectively fight for our liberty and effectively fight against a political enemy that seeks to subvert our liberty. And in doing that, I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm not your mother. I'm not your guardian. I'm not serving in this parental role where I decide what's suitable for you to see. Right? And when news networks or outlets censor something because they don't think that you have a right to see it, what they're saying to you is well, I'm a little bit better than you. I get to see this because I'll be responsible with the information, but we don't think that you will be responsible with the information, or that if it's widely disseminated that the general populace can handle it, and so we're going to censor it. And I think that that's a slippery slope to exactly what we're seeing on Twitter, where they don't want quote unquote health, COVID, disinformation and misinformation circulating because they only want their prevailing narrative to reach people's ears. And so there's been a lot of people that said, listen, when you talk about Damar Hamlin, don't show the video out of respect for him. don't show the video. Out of respect for the game, don't show the video. And there's no disrespect meant when I show this video. There's no, not football. There's no disrespect meant to Damar Hamlin showing this video. It was broadcast on Monday Night Football. It's hardly something that's going to be kept private at this point. But I'm not the gatekeeper. I'm not the one deciding what's suitable for you to watch or not to watch. We're talking about something that happened. This is the thing that happened. You need to look at it so that you understand what it is that happened so that we can respond to it and order our response, our response properly. So just a little preemptive explanation for those of you who are going to, I'm sure, reach out to me saying, well, why did you have to play that? That's not respectful. No, it's necessary for us to understand. So besides that, looking at that video, there's a couple things that stuck out to me. First of all, when people have passed out or been injured on the field before, even people who've been knocked out, there's a difference in how their body reacts even as they are losing consciousness. For example, if you faint, you typically crumble, and until you actually hit the ground, your body attempts to protect itself from that fall. That wasn't the case with this. There was no attempt at unconscious protection. His body was completely out of it, for lack of a better term. That is very, very unusual. That shows that it's something incredibly serious, which we now know that it is. So that's the first thing that I noticed. The second thing that I noticed is this photograph of his teammates surrounding him in prayer, right? And this struck me at the time because everything has gotten so political in the NFL. You can't escape the politics, it seems. It's gotten a little bit less than it was when they were showing all the athletes kneeling for the flag. But this actually shows the heart of our country more than the Colin Kaepernick garbage did. This shows that the American people, even these football players might be majority leftist. That's very possible. They might be liberal. They might, as Colin Kaepernick claimed, most of them might believe the Black Lives Matter narrative. I don't know. But this shows that at our core, we are still a believing nation. We are a nation that believes in God and believes in the power of prayer and believes in using that prayer to intercede for each other. And that's a moment that, regardless of everything else we're going to talk about or how this might unfold, that we should not forget. In fact, this is something that I never thought I would see from ESPN on air. An ESPN host said a beautiful prayer for Damar Hamlin. Take a look at this.
This is a little bit different. I've heard it all day, thoughts and prayers. And you just heard Scherf and Jonathan Allen say, all we can do is pray for him. And I've heard the Buffalo Bills organization say, we believe in prayer. And maybe this is not the right thing to do, but it's just on my heart that I want to pray for.
It is.
Damar Hamlin right now. I'm going to do it out loud. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to bow my head, and I'm just going to pray for him. God, we come to you in these moments that we don't understand, that are hard. Because we believe that you're God, and coming to you and praying to you has impact. We're sad, we're angry, and we want answers, but some things are unanswerable. We just want to pray, truly come to you and pray for strength for Damar, for healing for Damar, for comfort for Damar, to be with his family, to give them peace. If we didn't believe that prayer didn't work, we wouldn't ask this of you, God. I believe in prayer. We believe in prayer. We lift up Damar Hamlin's name in your name. Amen.
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 It's beautiful.
Respectfully.
Amen. Think about the audience, the huge audience that saw that prayer, that took part in that prayer. This is the heart of our country. And again, I know right now, as we sit here talking, as I film this show, there are a lot of blue check marks on Twitter who are virulently criticizing me for talking about the correlation between the you-know-what and Damar Hamlin, questioning whether there is a correlation. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But putting that aside, this is something that we should all focus on. This heart of our country being a people of faith who believe in God, who believe in the power of prayer. That is something that honestly I never thought I'd see in NFL football again. But let's talk about the you know what and the correlation between what happened, Damar Hamlin's collapse, and his vaccination status. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but first I want to talk to you about American Hartford Gold. Guys, is it only me, or does the future feel more insecure and uncertain? At every turn, we're getting less for more, while record high inflation, soaring interest rates, and the looming recession are threatening businesses, jobs, and retirement funds. Even Fed Chair Powell warned us to brace for more pain. Fortunately, there is a way to secure your hard-earned nest egg. You can do what I did. You can call the only precious metals dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. They make it simple and easy to protect your savings and retirement accounts with physical gold and silver. With one short phone call, they can have physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside your IRA or 401k. American Hartford Gold is the highest rated firm in the country with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. If you call them right now, they'll give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 866-781-7499. That's 866-781-7499. Or text Liz to 65532. Again, that's 866-781-7499. Or text LIZ to 65532. Okay, so I know I was not the only one who saw this and immediately thought, well, that's unusual for a professional athlete, an NFL football player, to collapse on the field, especially when it wasn't a particularly hard hit, nothing out of the ordinary compared to what we saw earlier in the game. I hope that you'll join me in continuing to pray for Damar Hamlin and his recovery and his family and his team and everyone who's witnessed that event, and pray also for the truth, to seek reality. And I'm grateful for you that we sit here and we have these conversations, that we're able to talk about difficult topics, painful topics, heartbreaking topics, controversial topics in a way that is rational, that is keeping in mind that the goal of these conversations is to understand reality so that we can properly order our response to that reality, to protect our freedom and defend ourselves against those who would infringe upon us and our families and our freedom. All right, now let's talk about the battle that's going on in the House of Representatives, this effort by Republicans to elect a new Speaker of the House. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but first I want to talk to you about ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like walking your dog in public without securing them on a leash. Most of the time, you'll probably be fine, right? But what if one day your dog runs away or, God forbid, gets dog napped? It's better to be careful, especially when it's as simple as just using ExpressVPN when you're online. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network, I'm talking cafes, hotels, airports, anywhere in public, really, your online data is not secured. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and then steal your personal data. But ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet, so the hackers can't do that. It actually would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. ExpressVPN works on all your devices, phone, laptop, tablet, even on your smart TV, and it's so easy to use. You just fire up the app and click one button, and voila, you are protected. I like ExpressVPN because it keeps me safe when I am online. Get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN free at expressvpn.com/Liz. That's expressvpn.com/Liz. expressvpn.com/Liz. Okay, so the shenanigans that's happening in the House of Representatives right now, I got to tell you, I do not understand the huffing and the puffing coming from even a lot of Republicans who are so urgent to elect a Speaker of the House. Like, what is your urgency? Why are you in such a hurry here? Like, do it right. I don't want you to hurry and us to be stuck with a terrible Speaker of the House. I want you to take your time and do it right, because 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days sacrificed to this fight in an effort to get a Speaker of the House who understands the reality of the political enemy that we face, and who is committed to standing strong in his principles and fighting the cultural battles. Yeah, okay, you can have 2 or 3 or 5 days. Take all the time you need. The urgency, this is actually a negotiation tactic. If you're sitting across the negotiating table from someone and you're trying to get them to acquiesce to your demand, then you give them a false deadline. You say, well, you got to tell me in 5 minutes or this expires. Or you gotta give me an answer by the end of the business day, or the offer's not gonna be good anymore. Even if you have no real deadline for your negotiation, putting this false sense of urgency on people makes them more likely to cave to your demands. So just a little something to keep in mind when you hear this urgency for this election to take place and this gridlock that's holding up the process. Take a chill, people. Take a chill. It's not going to hurt anything. I actually have changed my mind about 3 times on this, so let me walk you through how I've been thinking about this. First of all, McCarthy. He's a swamp creature. My first primary objective, would be to get him out of his leadership role. I don't think he deserves a leadership role. I don't think he does a good job. I don't think he will do a good job. I don't think he has any principles. I think he is just a creature of Washington, D.C. He likes power. He likes the politics of the things, but he's not so much on the principles. And I'm not about that. It's time for the Republican Party to graduate all of those types of politicians and put real fighters, real culture warriors in at the top. And we know that we need this in Congress. How are we going to investigate if we don't have a Speaker of the House, leadership that is committed to this? I could go on and on about the reasons that McCarthy is not fit for this role, but he's obviously not fit for this role. I'm all about a challenger, someone who, from the Freedom Caucus, who would be committed to fighting these fights. That's my first iteration of thought is great. Let's get rid of McCarthy. I've been saying for months after Republicans lost in November that we need to get rid of McConnell, we need to get rid of McCarthy, and we need to get rid of McDaniel. All the people at the top of the Republican apparatus, whether it's the party, whether it's the Senate, whether it's the House. Let's get someone new. So then we get to this challenge, right, where these 20 members of the Freedom Caucus are refusing to vote for McCarthy, which is preventing him from winning the speakership. And in and of itself, that's great. I'm happy to see that. I'm a supporter of this idea of not having McCarthy as speaker. However, they're missing one big part here. where the heck is their challenger? If you're going to challenge McCarthy, you don't just challenge him by saying, nah, we don't like you. You present an alternative. Put a candidate to compete against McCarthy in the race. The Republican Party is often branded as the party of no, and it's deserved. We are the party of no. We're the party of no. We say no when the left tries to infringe upon our freedoms. We say no to burgeoning big government. We say no to Marxism. We say no to too many laws, or this is what we're supposed to be doing. And in this case, Republicans are being the party of no. They're saying no to McCarthy, but you have to have a plan. You have to have somebody who is willing to step up and be an alternative. So come on. If you're going to make this challenge, then you have to do it right. Otherwise, this was my second iteration of what I was thinking. Otherwise, you're going to risk having a Democrat Speaker of the House. If you can't get a Republican that gets a majority, and the Democrats who have the minority in the House right now, yes, but only by a small margin, if they are able to get a candidate who has enough votes that a split Republican vote leads to a Democrat Speaker of the House, then Republicans are bigger idiots than anyone that I could possibly think of. So that's like my second iteration of how I was thinking of this. Like, okay, well, you did this wrong, so maybe we're going to be stuck with McCarthy. But then I'm thinking about this. I'm sitting there thinking about this, and I'm thinking, you know what? There is no way that we're going to end up with a Democrat as Speaker of the House. Republicans are stupid sometimes. Of course they are. But there is no way that Republicans are idiotic enough that they have not pre-planned how they are spoiling McCarthy's attempt, his bid for Speaker here. So the question still remains, why wasn't there an alternative presented to give people a choice? But McCarthy, in this situation where we've had 6 rounds of voting and 20 Republicans are not budging, they're not caving, they're standing strong in their principles as they should, McCarthy owes these caucus members a voice. But what McCarthy is doing instead is very telling. He's trying to negotiate with Democrats. He wants fewer Democrats to vote for the Democrat option so that his percentage of votes, even if Democrats don't vote for him, his percentage of votes is higher because of the votes that the Democrats wouldn't cast for their candidate, which would lead him to win the speakership even if he couldn't convince these 20 Republicans to vote for him. So McCarthy would rather negotiate with Democrats than negotiate with 20 members of his own party. This is what I'm talking about. This is why we got to get rid of McCarthy here. He owes these caucus members a voice. What should happen here is instead of complaining about gridlock, instead of complaining about the Republicans holding up the process, McCarthy should step aside. Republicans would have no problem electing new leadership if McCarthy steps aside. Then someone will step in from the Freedom Caucus, and this election will conclude. Now, whether this is Jim Jordan, whether this is Byron Donalds, I still think the Freedom Caucus should have presented an alternative candidate at the beginning. They should have run this candidate against McCarthy, but they didn't, and that doesn't mean that this is over. It does not mean that this is over. I mean, I have found this whole exercise very telling in how many people who pretended to be conservative stalwarts are turning towards McCarthy just literally days after pretending that they were lovers of freedom. I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm talking about Donald Trump. These are people who claim that they are anti-swamp. They claim they want to drain the swamp, and then they're turning towards McCarthy? What? Lauren Boebert, Congresswoman Boebert says that Trump called her and told her to knock it off. I don't think so. I would have found that very, very off-putting. And Crenshaw is perhaps the new Adam Kinzinger in the House now, calling Republicans, the 20 Republicans, enemies. This is an exercise for you and I to step back and understand who is actually on the side of freedom and who will cave in the moment of opportunity here. There's no urgency for Republicans to elect a speaker. There is impetus for Republicans to do this right. Now, maybe they made a mistake with how they presented this, but that doesn't mean that it's over. McCarthy should step aside. He should step aside, and Republicans should elect a leader who's actually committed to fighting for what the base, you and I, want from the Republican Party. And I hate to say I told you so about Marjorie Taylor Greene, or even it's not that I told you so about Trump here. It's that something has happened to Trump recently that I think that we should put a pin on. We should put a pin on. So if you go back before this speaker the speakership election chaos, President Trump tweeted either late last week or early this week. He tweeted, or not tweeted, he's not on Twitter, is he? Over on Truth Social, he posted, and he said, quote, "It wasn't my fault that Republicans didn't live up to expectations in the midterms. I was 233 to 20. It was the abortion issue, poorly handled by many Republicans, especially those that firmly insisted on no exceptions, even in the case of rape, incest, or life of the mother, that lost large number of voters. Also, the people that pushed so hard for decades against abortion got their wish from the U.S. Supreme Court and just plain disappeared, not to be seen again. Plus Mitch stupid monies." In other words, Donald Trump blamed pro-lifers for the fact that Republicans did not see the red wave that we had hoped to see in the midterm election. This is bananas on many levels, but let's just break this down. So Trump's bombastic nature, I have always found to be very entertaining. I've never been one that's particularly offended by Trump. I think his comments are generally funny. I don't mind that he pushes politicians. They're politicians, for goodness sake. They should be pushed, especially swamp creatures in mainstream media. Like, sure, yell at Jim Acosta. I couldn't care less. That's hilarious to me. Now everyone else treats these people because they work for CNN or the New York Times. They treat them like they have earned this position of respect when they haven't. Their behavior has been atrocious. I've always found Trump's bombastic nature to be more or less entertaining, and he used it to his advantage in negotiations, political negotiations, right? It was Trump's no BS demeanor that won him the white working class vote in 2016. Because, this is very key, it's not because it was charming to everyone, it's not because everyone found it entertaining, it's not because it was inoffensive. A lot of people were offended by what he said, whether or not I agree with that. The reason it worked in 2016 was because Trump was an outsider. And it was because he wasn't a politician that when he called out BS the way that he did, it resonated with people because they were like, yes, this is what I'm thinking as a non-politician when I see slimy politicians being corrupt. And so they saw something of themselves in Trump because he was an outsider, because he wasn't running a traditional campaign. He was talking directly to the people at these rallies. He was freestyling. He was engaging in a conversation, and people liked it. It worked. But now, something has changed. Even a lot of people who think President Trump was a good president, at least up until COVID, or who were Trump supporters outright, are turned off by Trump's behavior. So why is that? I'm going to tell you why that is. Trump should be listening to this. I hope he is listening to this, because he needs to recognize the disconnect that has happened between he and his base. Now Trump is not an outsider. He is no longer one of the people. He is one of the politicians. In fact, he is a consultant class politician now. And what I mean by that is I know for a fact that the political consultant class who feel like they control all politicians, they feed politicians talking points, they tell politicians if you don't handle a certain situation or a certain topic by saying XYZ, then this demographic will turn against you. And so they control politicians, both candidates and politicians in office, by this fear-mongering of, oh, we know, we're the experts. We know the demographics of the people, and if you don't say what we think you should say, then the people will turn against you and you'll lose your seat. Trump is now a consultant class politician because I know for a fact that the narrative that the consultants are pushing on Republicans right now is a narrative that says, don't touch abortion. Don't talk about Roe v. Wade. Don't act overjoyed. Don't celebrate this. Don't be pro-life. Be silent. Hide. Pretend you don't support this. Otherwise, you'll lose all the voters that you ever wanted. That is what Republican consultants are pushing on Republican politicians and on Republican political organizations. It's why you'll never see fundraising emails about Roe v. Wade. It's why you'll never hear politicians talk about abortion right now. They're all silent about it. We just experienced the biggest pro-life victory in the history of the pro-life movement with the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Politicians won't touch it because the political consultants are threatening them. Trump is being controlled by political consultants right now. He's not an outsider anymore. He's a politician. He was a wrecking ball before with his bombastic nature, and it was charming because he was an outsider, but it's not so charming when that wrecking ball is not aimed at the swamp, it's aimed at us, his base. He's aiming that wrecking ball at the principles of the base that he would need in order to ever win an election ever again. And the reason he's doing this is because he's lost touch with his base. Instead of talking to the people, he's talking to his consultants. And so on major pivotal issues like the vaccine, for example, he still touts his own vaccine. He wants to take ownership of that. He brags about Operation Warp Speed as the rest of the Republican electorate is like, wait a second, this vaccine is not effective and it's not safe, it's harmful. It costs people their jobs. He's lost touch with his base on the pro-life issue. There have been no more loyal voters to the Republican Party than pro-lifers. He's lost touch with his base on McCarthy too, Speaker of the House. Not Speaker of the House now, but in his bid for Speaker of the House, Trump is threatening the 20 members of the Freedom Caucus to vote for McCarthy or else. He's lost touch with his base because he's relying on consultants instead. And why else? Because he's off Twitter. I know the mainstream media liked to pretend that Trump never spent any time on Twitter on his own, that he just typed stuff out and then he sent it to staffers and staffers posted that, but that's not true. Trump himself spent time on Twitter. And it was a good way for him to keep his finger on the pulse of his base. When he did something or said something and people didn't like it, he responded. But he's distant from that now. He's out of touch. He's a politician. If I'm Trump, what do I do right now? I fire all my political consultants. I get back on Twitter. I start listening to the people. Because blaming this lack of a red wave on pro-lifers is bananas. It's untrue. It's completely ignorant. There was a great Federalist article. I can pull up the title and post it on Locals because I don't have it in front of me right now. But it's a great Federalist article that details how in a country that has the views on abortion that our country has, meaning there are wide disparities in some areas, meaning if you identify pro-life or if you identify pro-choice, or if you support abortion in early term versus late term, there are a lot of people that are okay with abortion in early term. There are not many people that are okay with abortion in late term. But in this divided culture that we have, people have varying views on abortion. There's a specific algorithm on how to win abortion legislation at the state level. And this federal article said it's three things. It's that the legislation that's pro-life has to make an incremental change. It can't go from abortion with no restrictions to no abortion. It has to be incremental so that people can move along that trajectory instead of it being a flip. And instead of being a flip of a coin, it has to move along a bar. Incremental change. The language of the legislation has to be very clear as well, meaning there can be no misunderstanding. It can leave no room for the left to misconstrue it, to misrepresent it, to pretend that it's about ectopic pregnancy or contraceptive, for example, versus about what abortion is. And then, of course, at the state level, it's about money. You have to actually fundraise on abortion. You have to spend money on these topics in order to educate people and to combat the false narrative that's coming from the left. And if you do those three things, then the pro-life position is and can be a winning issue. And if Trump had his finger on the pulse of his base, then he would realize that. If he's listening to consultants, then he's going to make banana statements like blaming pro-lifers, which the reason I say bananas is there's maybe been not a single thing that Trump did during his tenure as president except his Supreme Court justice appointments where there was unity in the base. Even never-Trumpers like the fact that there's a conservative Supreme Court. Like, this has been the most unifying thing. And now to say that he's against that, to blame that for the loss in the midterms is clearly bananas. But like I said, if I'm Trump, all you have to do is fire that consultant class and start listening to the people again. And a lot of your problems will go away, and you'll be more connected to your base. And your base does not want McCarthy as Speaker of the House. Your base wants a Freedom Caucus culture warrior who understands the reality of the political enemy that we face. And I certainly hope that this is fulfilled when we do elect a speaker, and I'm here for the ride. I'm watching with popcorn. I'm sitting here with popcorn watching this unfold. All right, guys, thank you for watching today. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.